Hi guys, this is Kruti from Haptik's marketing team, and I have here with us Pooja, who heads corporate strategy for us and business functions for Geo. Pooja, do you want to say hi?
Yes, hello everyone. This is Pooja Modi from Haptik, and as Kruti was just mentioning, I'm the business head for Geo at Haptik. So what I do is formulate strategy around how conversation interfaces can add value across various geo businesses, and also oversee the execution of those projects. So I have on ground here with me a dedicated team of 18 who work across our various geo projects, be it telecom, geo fiber, retail, and so forth.
Oh, thank you so much for joining us here today, Pooja. And we're here to talk about what everybody's talking about, right? Reliance rights issue. It's one of its kind. It's one of the largest that's happening around, and at a time when the whole economy is sort of in a difficult phase. And what I wanted to understand from you, it's definitely the one of its kind chatbot that we have built as a company as well. And I wanted to know, like, how did we come up with this idea, and where did it all start?
Yeah, so absolutely. If you see the problem that this bot solves, it is, how can you provide information around rights issue more easily, right? So what I mean by that is typically when a company does a rights issue, they release what is called a letter of offer or an information memorandum document, which is basically around a 300-page extensive document covering all information around the rights issue, be it general information about the company, financial information, legal information, and so forth, right? So anyone who has a question, the onus is on them to kind of parse through the document and find the answer to their question. Now, as you can imagine, that is a very cumbersome task. So the idea was, okay, how can you make the information available to a potential investor in a way that is more interactive, more time efficient, more smart, such that he can just ask a question and receive an answer relevant to his query. So yeah, that was the crux of it.
Okay, so can you like give us a practical example on how it exactly helps a user?
Yeah, sure. One good example of that would be non-resident Indians. NRIs are not eligible to this rights issue, right? So now, of course, that information would be available at some point in the IM, but perhaps it could be that they are passing through the document, looking for other information before they realize they're not eligible. So we have designed the bot journey in a way that is something that becomes available to you almost first thing on the bot, should you choose to identify yourself as an NRI, right, before you go through any of the other information. So just the whole idea with the bot was to think through what are some of the top queries and questions that potential investors would have, and make those available upfront in the bot.
Wow. So I think a lot of NRIs have you to thank for saving their time. Okay. So my next question to you is, this bot is about 70 FAQs and we managed to build this in 24 hours. Is that even possible? And if yes, like how did we do it?
Yeah, that was the time that we had for this bot, and uh, so yeah, that was also the exciting part, because the reason there was a 24-hour deadline was because we were trying to finish and launch this bot with the official rights issue launch. So from the time that all the content for the bot, which was of course confidential information, so from the time it became available to the deadline of launch, there was very slick window, and in some sense it was exciting because of the whole nature of this project, right? And we usually have like a 4-step process that we follow for any bot, right? Design, development, testing, and go live. So even in this case, I was very keen that we follow all those 4 steps, because while time is of a sense, quality is of as much a sense. Especially in a bot like this, where we are handing out such critical, sometimes even legal information. And so the way we did it was to find innovative ways around doing those steps a bit more efficiently and quickly, but not skipping any of them. So is there ways to do them in parallel, perhaps put more hands on decks in some steps, and manage very closely through each step of the way. So I remember we had set up like a all day room bridge, and we were constantly communicating, and we literally had like hourly milestones that we were tracking towards to ensure that okay, we're not losing sight of the big picture and always kind of moving towards our ultimate deadline. So, and lastly and most importantly, I think what worked was that I'm very fortunate to have a very motivated team on ground here. And speaking of motivation, I have to say that we work on Reliance projects, and what that means is more often than not you're working on something that's the first of its kind, is relevant to a lot of people. So that in itself is so fulfilling that it does kind of have the job of motivating um, the team. And my job as a leader to motivate them and bring out the best in them is kind of halfway done there itself. And of course, we also had a very, very supportive and helpful team on the Reliance and on the bridge with us the whole time, kind of approving, validating, bouncing ideas. So it was a very good joint team effort, and really a testament to what you can achieve with good teamwork. That too in a remote setting, I must add.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And you just mentioned that this was all done in a remote setting, which just sounds like something next to impossible to us here. And do you like have a tip for people who are working from home on how they can be so productive and make something so huge in 24 hours?
Yeah, I mean, I think remote work, I think something we are all figuring out. It was just something we're all thrown into. For our team, at least, what has worked, I think, the success has come down to two main things for us. One is communication, and and second would be to just processize and put process around things. So um, the first one, what I mean is just having that line of communication open, speaking to your team regularly, keeping tabs so even they know you are approachable to, if they're blocked on something or need you to prioritize or deprioritize something, and keeping just like a tab on what the team is doing, and being there for them. And on the process part, so that there is some level of predictability into what a normal day looks like, right? So what we have done on the process end just is we have daily scrums in the morning, very simple 15-minute meeting to just assign people's tasks. And we also have an end of the day scrum, just to kind of close that loop, which helps with of course helps improve the accountability of the team itself, but also as a team leader gives you a good sense of what the output of your team is, and on a daily basis usually what is the speed of operating. So if you have a day where you really have to accelerate through things, you kind of know which levers to play with. And lastly and most importantly, what that helps with is the whole team spirit and culture piece, because if you have some kind of routine or culture or task that your team does every day, it really helps to keep that vibe going, because I think that's the biggest problem that all of us are trying to solve for in the remote setting. How do you keep that vibe alive? So this is what has seemed to work for us, communication and some kind of process.
That really helps, and I'm definitely gonna take a tip or two from you offline about this. My next question to you will be, how is the bot performing? Like, what is the response being from shareholders, investors? Are they finding it useful? What is the overall response?
No, the response has been absolutely phenomenal. I think on a daily basis, bot handles about 40 to 50,000 queries. And top questions are around payments, am I eligible, eligibility calculator, which is how many shares you are eligible to buy. So what that means is actually with the rights issue, there is a rule uh, about how many basis how many shares you currently own, you are eligible to buying a certain number of shares in this rights issue. So usually in the non-bot world, you would be looking for this rule in the IM and then calculating your eligibility basis how many shares you have today. In the bot now, you can just input your number of shares and the bot calculates your eligible shares for you, right? And we are seeing a lot of people kind of use this feature. And probably yet another example to your earlier question about how the bot kind of adds value, to the end user. And it's nice because, truncated as it was, we, as I mentioned, did do the design phase for this bot as well, where we really try to put ourselves in the shoes of the end user and think through, okay, what are their top queries, and how can we make their life easy through this bot, right? So it's great validation now that the bot is live to see that the users are really extensively using some of these features that we built out for them.
Oh, that sounds amazing and really helpful as well. My second question to you would be: while I understand working on Reliance projects is a motivation in itself, and you have an amazing team, but 24 hours deadline is still a really strict deadline. Was there ever a time that you sort of panicked or felt that, okay, yeah, this is not possible?
Honestly, Kriti, no, not at all. And perhaps it was partly because there was really no time for it. As I was mentioning earlier, we didn't skip any of our 4 steps. So there was a lot that we had packed into the day. So the focus very much was, okay, here's a deadline, let's go get it done. And as I said, it was a mammoth task in its own right, and there was a lot that we were trying to achieve, sometimes in parallel. So the focus was on those constructive things of how to move forward through the course of the day. And also, I must add that that is kind of the beauty of working with uh, Reliance, where that is very much the DNA of the org, right? Like there is no such thing as impossible or stopping to thinking. It's just there's a deadline and we have to go achieve it. And that for me also personally has been the most fulfilling and driving part. So it may seem okay, like this is an intimidating thing, but actually. It is a motivating thing. It actually drives you, and that's the whole kind of energy in the room. And if you see our team on ground also now, that's kind of become their DNA also. I mean, I look at it as one team only anyway. I mean, we're working with them day in and day out. And so everyone just comes to that room putting their thinking caps on, and 24 hour now seems like a short duration, but looking back, there were so many kind of ups and downs and turns, that at each turn of the way your mind is too occupied with just figuring out how to move ahead, whether it is about, okay, is there a product feature that can help do this more efficiently. Sometimes it's, okay, is this a nice to have or a must have? If it's the former, let's eliminate. Sometimes it's, okay, can you just put more hands on deck here? So it's about a lot of kind of problem solving, thinking on your feet, that takes up your mind space. And at the end of the day, what keeps me and the team going is the goal that you are achieving. As I was saying, it's very exciting in its own right, and everyone comes to the table knowing that this is what is going to be the value add of this project to the end user. So that's what keeps you going, and no, not at all, not for a minute again.
Wow, just listening to you, I can feel how much you enjoy this process and how much do you enjoy working with Reliance. So
It
yeah,
really
that
was.
sounds like an exciting roller coaster ride.
It was great, yeah.
Okay, so my last question to you is from correct me if I'm wrong. So rights issue is a limited time bot, right? And what's in the future for the bot? What will happen after the rights issue is finished?
Yeah, no. So once the rights issue ends, this bot will be used as an investor relations bot, which is also going to be the first of its kind, and will be investors on an ongoing basis also have common questions which we will kind of train this bot to answer, and also leading up to specific events like an AGM, so forth. Also, there are questions like guides, timing, so forth that will be built in as and when required. So that will end up becoming what this number will be used for going forward.
Wow, and that also sounds like a bot that has never been built before, is it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, we'll continue to be very excited about it. And yeah.
Great. I mean, thank you so much for joining us here, Pooja. And it was not only helpful personally, it was really inspiring for me as well. And thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Absolutely, Kriti. Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.